Oh, look at this. The ones who swore you'd crumble without them, they're not sleeping anymore. Not peacefully, anyway. They're up at 3 a.m. scrolling through your name, searching for cracks in the foundation you built alone, hunting for proof that you need them, that you're struggling, that you're falling apart without their permission to exist. But instead, they find something that turns their stomach. They find you thriving. Not just surviving, not just getting by. Thriving. Glowing. Untouchable. And it's eating them alive from the inside out because you did the one thing they said was impossible. You won alone. Not with their approval. Not with their network. Not with their validation. You took the loneliest road and turned it into a kingdom. And now they're sick. Literally sick. Watching you build what they said required their presence, their wisdom, their cosign, their blessing. You beautiful, reckless, solitary warrior. Welcome to the place where your silence became your loudest weapon, where your isolation became your greatest advantage, where walking away became walking up. They told you that you needed people. They told you that going solo was career death, social death, spiritual death. They painted loneliness like it was poison, like it was failure, like it was proof you couldn't play well with others. They made you believe that success required their circle, their energy, their resources, their stamp of approval. But here's what they didn't tell you. Here's what kept them up even before you left. They knew. Oh, they knew. They knew you didn't actually need them. They knew your strength wasn't borrowed. They knew your vision wasn't a group project. They knew that the moment you realized you could build solo, their relevance would evaporate like morning fog under a ruthless sun. So, they fed you the lie. The lie that you're incomplete alone. The lie that isolation equals weakness. The lie that needing no one makes you cold, broken, arrogant, or insane. They needed you to believe you were half a person without them because the truth, the real truth, is that you were always whole and they were the ones feeding off your completeness. You were the battery and they were the devices draining you. You were the sun and they were the planets pretending they created the light. You were the foundation and they were the decorations claiming they held up the house. And the moment you went solo, the moment you said, "I'll do this myself," that's when their world started cracking. Let's get specific because they're probably listening right now, refreshing your page, checking your numbers, inspecting your glow up for Photoshop, analyzing your piece for pretending, searching your wins for luck. They want so badly to find evidence that you're miserable, that going solo destroyed you, that you're lonely, desperate, regretful, broken, begging to come back. But what do they see instead? They see expansion. They see growth. They see confidence. They see results. They see someone who stopped asking for permission and started granting it to themselves. And it's torture for them. Pure psychological torture. Because every win you score alone is a reminder of how unnecessary they were. Every milestone you hit without them is proof their gatekeeping was fiction. Every smile on your face, every project you complete, every goal you crush without their input is a dagger in the illusion they sold you. The illusion that you needed them to be you. They're losing sleep because you proved them wrong. Not with words, not with arguments, not with posts or paragraphs or public callouts. You proved them wrong by becoming undeniable. By going ghost and coming back golden. by choosing yourself and watching yourself bloom. They can't argue with results. They can't debate your peace. They can't dismiss your growth. All they can do is watch. And watching you win alone is killing them slower than any revenge you could have planned. Because you didn't need to destroy them. Your success did that for you. Your independence became their nightmare. Your self-sufficiency became their failure. You didn't have to say a word. Your life became the loudest statement you could have ever made. And now they're the ones whispering your name in rooms you'll never enter. Trying to figure out how you did it. How you survived without them. How you thrived without them. How you're better without them. See, they thought loneliness would break you. They thought isolation would weaken you. They thought going solo meant you'd come crawling back humbled, broken. Willing to settle for crumbs just to feel connected again. They were counting on it. They weaponized your fear of being alone because they knew connection was your soft spot. They knew you valued relationships, loyalty, and community. So they used that against you. They made you feel like leaving the group meant leaving life itself. Like choosing yourself meant choosing emptiness. Like walking away meant walking into nothing. But you called their bluff. You stepped into the void they promised would destroy you. And instead of drowning, you learned to fly. You discovered that alone doesn't mean lonely. That solo doesn't mean weak. That independence doesn't mean isolation. You found out that sometimes the crowd you're in is the very thing blocking your view of the mountaintop. And now they're sleepless. They're scrolling at 2 a.m. They're checking your stories. They're watching your every move. Not out of love, not out of concern, but out of disbelief. They can't believe you're doing it without them. They can't believe you're smiling without their approval. They can't believe you're building without their blueprint. They can't believe you're winning without their system. It's eating them alive because their entire identity was built on being needed, on being essential, on being the reason others succeed. But you shattered that story. You became the evidence that their necessity was negotiable. That their value was conditional. That their presence wasn't the key to your potential. You were always the key. You just had to stop letting them hold it. Let me tell you what's really happening in their heads right now. Every single day they wake up and before they check their own lives, they check yours. They're looking for proof. Proof that you failed. Proof that you're struggling. Proof that going solo was a mistake. Because if you fail, it validates their warnings. It justifies their manipulation. It proves they were right about you needing them. But if you succeed, if you thrive, if you flourish, then it means they were the problem. It means they were the weight you had to drop to rise. It means they weren't the answer. They were the obstacle. And that realization is unbearable for people whose egos are built on being saviors. They need you to need them. They need you to be incomplete without them, because if you're complete alone, then what were they? Parasites, leeches, dead weight, optional, replaceable, forgettable. So, they cope by telling themselves lies. They say you're faking it. They say you're pretending. They say you're putting on a show. They say your success is temporary. They say your peace is fake. They say your confidence is a mask. They say you'll crack soon. They say you'll come back broken. They say you'll regret this. They say you're lost. They say you're confused. They say you're acting out. They say you're having a phase. Anything to avoid admitting the truth. The truth that you're genuinely better without them. That your life improved when they left it. That your mental health stabilized when you cut them off. That your vision clarified when you stopped seeking their input. That your energy returned when you stopped giving it to them. They can't accept it, so they twist it. They rewrite the story. They make themselves the victims. They make you the villain. They tell people you changed. That you're cold now. That success made you arrogant. That independence made you cruel. But you know the truth, don't you? You didn't change. You just stopped pretending. You stopped shrinking yourself to make them comfortable. You stopped dimming your light so they wouldn't feel overshadowed. You stopped apologizing for being capable. You stopped waiting for permission to be powerful. You stopped performing for people who were never applauding, just monitoring, judging, waiting for you to fail so they could say they saw it coming. You stopped living like you needed a cosigner for your existence. And the moment you stopped that performance, the moment you chose authenticity over acceptance, that's when you became free. That's when you became dangerous. That's when you became the one thing they can't control anymore. Yourself. They're not just losing sleep. They're losing their minds because you're not supposed to be this okay. You're not supposed to be this stable. You're not supposed to be this successful. Not alone. Not without them. Not without the system. Not without the network. Not without the cosigns. Not without the validation. You were supposed to crash. You were supposed to struggle. You were supposed to realize you made a mistake and come back humbled. That was the script they wrote for you. But you tore up that script and wrote your own. And your version, it's a masterpiece. A one-person show where you're the writer, director, producer, and star. And the audience? The audience is everyone who said it couldn't be done. Everyone who said you needed them. Everyone who said going solo was suicide. They're all watching now. And they're all choking on their words. You went solo and they got sick. Physically sick. Emotionally sick. Spiritually sick. Because your independence exposed their dependence. Your strength exposed their weakness. Your peace exposed their chaos. Your growth exposed their stagnation. You became the mirror they didn't want to look into. You became the standard they can't meet. You became the example they can't explain away. How did you do it? How did you survive without them? How did you build without their help? How did you rise without their ladder? How did you win without their playbook? They're asking these questions, but they already know the answer. They were the resource. They were the drain. They were never the solution. They were the problem. And you were always enough. You just needed to believe it. Here's the part that really destroys them. You didn't just survive without them. You improved. You got better. Sharper, clearer, faster, stronger, more focused, more productive, more creative, more successful, more peaceful, more joyful, more aligned, more authentic, more you. Every metric they said would drop without them, it went up. Your income, up. Your health, up. Your creativity, up. Your happiness, up. Your clarity, up. Your energy, up. Your standards, up. Your boundaries, up. Your self-respect, up. Your confidence, up. Everything they said would collapse without their presence. It skyrocketed. And that's not just evidence. That's a verdict. They were guilty of holding you back, and they didn't even know it. Or maybe they did. Maybe they knew exactly what they were doing. Maybe keeping you dependent was the plan all along. Let's talk about what they're doing now. Right now, as you're watching this, they're monitoring. They're lurking. They're pretending they don't care, but checking your every move. They're telling their friends, "I don't even think about them anymore," while refreshing your page every 3 hours. They're claiming they've moved on while analyzing your wins for flaws. They're saying, "Good for them," through gritted teeth while secretly hoping you stumble. They're watching your glow up like it's a horror movie. And they're the ones being haunted. Because your success without them is scarier than any ghost story. It's the death of their narrative. It's the collapse of their control. It's the end of their importance. You were supposed to be their proof that people need people. But instead, you became proof that some people need to be left behind. And you know what the most beautiful part is? You're not even doing it to spite them. You're not building to prove them wrong. You're not succeeding to make them jealous. You're not glowing to make them regret. You're doing it for you. Only you. That's what makes it so devastating for them. If you were doing this for revenge, they could dismiss it as obsession. If you were doing this to prove a point, they could call it insecurity. But you're doing it because it's who you are. You're thriving because that's your natural state when you're not being drained. You're winning because that's what happens when you stop carrying dead weight. You're glowing because that's the result of finally choosing yourself. And they can't argue with that. They can't diminish that. They can't take credit for that. All they can do is watch from the outside and realize they had access to this version of you and wasted it. They had front row seats to your potential and spent the whole show trying to dim the lights. Now they're in the nosebleed section watching you headline a show they'll never be invited to again. And it's killing them. Slowly, quietly, completely. Every post you make is a reminder. Every win you share is a wound. Every smile they see is a scar. Not because you're trying to hurt them, but because your happiness without them is the ultimate evidence that they weren't the source of it. They were the block. You weren't incomplete without them. You were incomplete with them. They weren't adding to your life. They were subtracting from it. And now that you've removed them, the math finally makes sense. You're whole. You're full. You're complete. And they're the ones left feeling empty, watching someone they once had access to become untouchable. Let's go deeper because they need to hear this. They need to know why they can't sleep. It's not just because you're winning. Lots of people win, and they don't lose sleep over it. It's because you're winning alone. That's the part that breaks them. Because it means everything they told you was a lie. Every time they said, "You can't do this without me," that was a lie. Every time they said, "You need us," that was manipulation. Every time they made you feel small for wanting independence, that was control. They built a cage out of words and called it community. They built a prison out of fear and called it protection. They made you dependent and called it loyalty. But you saw through it. Maybe not immediately. Maybe not all at once. But eventually, you saw the bars. You saw the locks. You saw the chains disguised as connections. And you walked away. And walking away was the hardest thing you've ever done. Let's not pretend it was easy. Let's not act like it didn't hurt. Let's not rewrite history and say you skipped away into the sunset with no scars. You bled. You cried. You doubted yourself. You questioned everything. You wondered if you made a mistake. You felt the weight of their words echoing in your head, telling you that you'd fail. That you'd regret this. That you'd be nothing without them. There were nights you almost went back. There were moments you almost apologized for choosing yourself. There were times you almost convinced yourself they were right. But you didn't. You stayed. You trusted yourself when no one else did. You bet on yourself when everyone else bet against you. And now you're collecting on that bet. They're watching you collect. They're watching you cash in on every risk you took, every sacrifice you made, every lonely night you endured. They're watching you reap the harvest of seeds you planted alone in soil they said was dead. They're watching you build an empire on land they said was cursed. They're watching you turn their curse into your crown. And it's torture for them. Because they could have been part of this. They could have supported you. They could have celebrated you. They could have cheered you on. But instead, they doubted you. They mocked you. They dismissed you. They underestimated you. And now they're stuck watching from a distance, realizing they had a winning lottery ticket and tore it up because they didn't believe in the numbers. You know what's really keeping them up at night? It's not just that you're successful. It's that you're happy. Genuinely happy. Not pretending. Not performing. Not faking it for the camera. Actually happy. They can see it in your eyes. They can hear it in your voice. They can feel it in your energy. You're lighter. You're freer. You're more yourself than you've ever been. And that's the part they can't fake their way around. Because success can be luck. Wins can be timing. Money can be circumstance. But happiness, real happiness, that can't be faked. That can't be bought. That can't be manufactured. That's the result of being in alignment with your truth. And your truth didn't include them. Your peace required their absence. Your joy demanded their exit. Your growth needed their removal. They know this. Deep down, they know this. That's why they can't sleep. Because every time they close their eyes, they see you smiling without them. Every time they try to rest, they remember you thriving without them. Every time they attempt peace, they're reminded that you found yours by losing theirs. They're haunted by the person you became after they left. They're tormented by the version of you they never got to see because they were too busy trying to control the version they wanted you to be. They're living with the ghost of what could have been if they had just supported you instead of suppressing you, celebrated you instead of competing with you, loved you instead of using you. But here's the thing. You don't owe them closure. You don't owe them explanations. You don't owe them proof. You don't owe them a breakdown of how you did it so they can steal your blueprint and claim they always knew. You don't owe them access to your process. You don't owe them insight into your pain. You don't owe them a behind-the-scenes tour of your transformation. They didn't earn that. They lost that privilege when they chose doubt over belief, when they chose control over support, when they chose their ego over your evolution. So, let them wonder. Let them speculate. Let them create theories and spread rumors and make up stories about how you did it. Let them stay confused. Let them stay lost. Let them stay searching for answers in a book you'll never let them read because your story isn't for them anymore. Your journey isn't their lesson. Your wins aren't their teaching moments. You're not here to be their case study or their cautionary tale or their example of what happens when you go rogue. You're here to live fully, freely, authentically, without permission, without apology, without explanation. You're here to prove to yourself that you can, that you are enough, that you always were. That going solo wasn't the death of you, it was the birth of the real you. The you that was buried under their expectations, their projections, their limitations, their fears. The you that was suffocating under the weight of their doubt disguised as concern. So, let them lose sleep. Let them scroll at 3 a.m. Let them check your page with shaking hands and racing hearts. Let them analyze your glow for cracks. Let them search your success for asterisks. Let them dig through your peace looking for pretending. Let them stay up all night trying to figure out how you did it without them. Because while they're losing sleep over you, you're sleeping like royalty. While they're sick with envy, you're healthy with purpose. While they're dying of curiosity, you're living in abundance. Oh, you should see their faces right now. You should see the way their jaws went slack. The way their eyes started darting across the page. The way their hands started trembling just slightly as they scrolled down through credentials they never knew existed. Achievements they never imagined. Connections they never suspected. Power they never calculated. They thought they knew you. They thought they had you figured out, categorized, filed away in their little mental drawer labeled harmless or beneath us or safe to disrespect. But then someone, maybe out of curiosity, maybe out of spite, maybe out of sheer accident, decided to actually look you up. And what they found, what they're staring at right now with their mouths hanging open like broken doors, is a resume that reads like a threat letter to their entire sense of reality. Welcome back to the moment everything changed. Welcome back to the exact second when the people who underestimated you, who dismissed you, who talked over you in meetings, who excluded you from opportunities, who smiled in your face while plotting behind your back, finally saw the receipts. And I'm not talking about the little resume you showed them when you were humble, when you were trying to fit in, when you were playing small because you thought that's what they needed to feel comfortable around you. No, no, no. I'm talking about the real one. The full one. The one with achievements that span industries, certifications that take decades to earn, projects that changed actual lives, networks that include names they only see in headlines, skills they didn't even know were skills, languages they can't pronounce, experiences that read like fiction because their reality is just too small to contain your truth. They're reading it right now, line by line, bullet point by bullet point, and with each new revelation, their stomachs are dropping lower and lower until they're somewhere near their shoes. Because this isn't just impressive, This is terrifying. This isn't just accomplished. This is untouchable. This isn't just qualified. This is overqualified to the point of insult. And suddenly all those moments when they talked down to you, when they questioned your intelligence, when they interrupted you mid-sentence, when they took credit for your ideas, when they acted like you should be grateful just to be in the room. All of those moments are playing back in their minds like a horror movie where they just realized they were the villain all along. You weren't the underdog. You were the wolf in sheep's clothing, the dragon pretending to be a lizard, the champion playing in the minor leagues just to see what it felt like to be normal for a while. But now the disguise is off. Now the truth is out. Now they're holding in their hands the documented proof that they were never in your league, never even in your universe, never even close to understanding who they were really dealing with. And the best part, the absolute chef's kiss of this whole situation is that you never had to say a word. You didn't have to defend yourself, didn't have to prove yourself, didn't have to argue or fight or beg for respect. Your resume did all the talking. Your credentials told the story. Your achievements wrote the ending. And that ending reads like a eulogy for their ego, a death certificate for their superiority complex, a final notice to every assumption they ever made about you. They're asking themselves now in the privacy of their own panic, who the hell were we messing with? And you're just sitting somewhere calm, unbothered, doing exactly what you've always done, being exactly who you've always been, while they spiral into the realization that they just spent months, maybe years, disrespecting someone who could have ended their career with a single phone call. Someone who knows people they'll never meet. Someone whose worst day is still better than their best achievement. Someone who was never climbing the ladder because they built the whole building. Let that sink in while we go deeper, because trust me, it gets so much better. Let's talk about what they're seeing right now, shall we? Let's walk through this resume line by line, section by section, and really savor the moment when each new revelation hits them like a punch to their professional pride. First section, education. They probably thought you had a basic degree from a decent school. Nothing special, nothing threatening. But no, what they're looking at now is a list that reads like an academic achievement unlocked guide. Multiple degrees, some from institutions they've only seen in movies, some from programs that accept less than 2% of applicants, some in fields so specialized that there are maybe 300 people on the entire planet who understand what you studied. Certifications that take years to complete. Training programs that cost more than their annual salary. Academic honors that prove you weren't just present. You were exceptional. You were the standard. You were the one everyone else was trying to keep up with. And it doesn't stop there. Experience section. This is where it gets really interesting. They thought you were entry-level or maybe mid-tier at best. Someone who was still figuring things out, still learning the ropes, still climbing. But what they're reading now is a career timeline that spans industries, that crosses continents, that includes positions they don't even have the qualifications to apply for. You've led teams of 50, 100, 200 people. You've managed budgets with more zeros than they can count on both hands. You've launched products that millions of people use every single day without even knowing your name. You've consulted for companies they respect from a distance. You've spoken at conferences where tickets cost thousands. You've published research that changed how entire industries operate. You've sat in rooms with decision makers who shape global policy. And all of this history, all of this power, all of this proof was happening while they were treating you like you were lucky to be there. Skills section. Oh, this is delicious. They probably assumed you had basic competency, maybe one or two strong areas, definitely nothing that would outshine them. Wrong. What they're staring at now is a skill set so diverse, so deep, so impossibly comprehensive that it reads like 3 different people's resumes combined. You speak languages they've never heard of. You code in systems they don't understand. You analyze data sets they couldn't even load on their computers. You design strategies that require understanding psychology, economics, technology, and human behavior all at once. You create, you build, you solve, you innovate across disciplines they didn't even know could connect. You're not just good at your job, you're good at 12 jobs, and you could do any of them better than the specialists who've dedicated their entire careers to just one. Then there's the section they really weren't ready for, achievements and awards. They thought you were invisible, unremarkable, someone who just blended into the background. But the list they're reading now tells a different story. Industry recognition from organizations they've only read about. Performance awards that come with plaques and ceremonies. Patents, actual patents, meaning you invented something that didn't exist before, something valuable enough to protect legally. Publications in journals they can't access without institutional credentials. Speaking engagements at events they'll never be invited to. Media mentions and outlets they scroll through every morning without ever thinking they'd see your name there. Community impact awards proving you weren't just successful. You were significant. You mattered. You changed things. And every single one of these accolades was earned while they were busy underestimating you. While they were assuming you were beneath them, while they were treating you like you should be grateful for their attention. Professional network. This might be the section that breaks them completely because it's one thing to have credentials. It's another thing to have connections. And your connections, the people who endorse you, who recommend you, who vouch for your work, these aren't just colleagues. These aren't just peers. These are names they recognize from news articles, from industry reports, from Forbes lists, from TED Talks, from bestseller lists, from positions of power they'll spend their entire lives trying to reach. You know people who run things. You have references who could make one phone call and change someone's entire trajectory. You've worked alongside legends, learned from masters, collaborated with innovators. Your network isn't a network. It's a private club. It's an inner circle. It's access they'll never have no matter how hard they try. And realizing this, realizing that you are always connected to power they couldn't even perceive. This is what's keeping them up tonight. This is what's making them replay every interaction. This is what's making them wonder if you remember, if you noticed, if you're telling those powerful people about how they treated you. Now their minds are racing backwards, rewinding through every single interaction they had with you. And each memory is hitting different now that they know the truth. Remember when they interrupted you in that meeting? You were making a point, a valid strategic point backed by experience they didn't know you had, and they just talked right over you like your words didn't matter, like your perspective was irrelevant, like you were wasting everyone's time. They remember that now. They remember how the room went quiet, how you just stopped talking, how you sat back with this expression they couldn't quite read at the time, but now they understand. That wasn't defeat on your face. That wasn't embarrassment. That wasn't insecurity. That was restraint. That was someone with the power to destroy, choosing mercy instead. That was someone who could have pulled out credentials that would have made the entire room apologize, but deciding it wasn't worth the energy. You let them have their moment. Let them feel smart. Let them think they won because you knew something they didn't. You knew your resume was sitting somewhere waiting to be discovered. Remember when they questioned your qualifications for a project? They actually had the audacity to suggest you weren't experienced enough, weren't knowledgeable enough, weren't trusted enough to handle something important. And you just nodded, took the feedback, didn't argue, didn't defend, didn't pull out the list of similar projects you completed at 10 times the scale for organizations, 10 times more prestigious. You let them reassign the work to someone they deemed more capable, someone who promptly struggled with every aspect because they didn't have a fraction of your expertise. You watched it unfold. You even helped when asked. You never said "I told you so" because you didn't need to. Your resume would tell that story eventually. And now they're reading about projects that make their entire company look like a practice run. Initiatives that dwarf anything they've ever accomplished. Results that prove you weren't just qualified, you were overqualified to a degree that their questioning was actually insulting. Remember when they took credit for your idea? You presented a solution in a casual conversation. They nodded along, said something non-committal, then 2 weeks later presented that exact solution as their own in a formal pitch and got praised for it while you sat there watching your intellectual property get stolen in real time. They remember that now, too. They remember how you didn't call them out, didn't make a scene, didn't fight for recognition. They thought that meant you didn't notice or didn't care. But what it really meant was that you've had ideas stolen before by people far more important than them. You've created innovations that got credited to entire teams. You've generated value that made other people rich and famous. And you learned long ago that people who steal ideas are people who can't generate their own. Which means they'll always need you more than you need them. Your resume proves you're an idea factory, a creative engine, a strategic mind that produces value constantly. Their theft was just them revealing their own poverty. Remember when they excluded you from opportunities, the projects they didn't invite you to, the meetings they held without you, the promotions they gave to people with half your qualifications, the training sessions they deemed not necessary for your role, the networking events they forgot to mention, the advancement opportunities that somehow never included your name. They made you feel invisible, made you question your worth, made you wonder if you were doing something wrong or if you just weren't good enough. And all along you had a resume that proved you'd already surpassed every opportunity they were gatekeeping. You'd already done the job they were protecting, already earned the title they were hoarding, already achieved the recognition they were desperate for. You didn't need their scraps because you'd already eaten at tables they'll never be invited to. You weren't excluded because you weren't good enough. You were excluded because including you would have exposed how mediocre they actually were. Remember when they talked down to you, the condescending tone, the explanations of things you already knew better than them, the way they simplified concepts like you couldn't handle complexity, the way they questioned your understanding of basics while you were mentally solving advanced problems they couldn't even identify. Every patronizing comment, every dismissive gesture, every moment they treated you like a student when you were actually the teacher, it's all coming back to them now with the weight of your credentials behind it. They talked down to someone who'd forgotten more than they'll ever learn. They explained elementary concepts to someone who'd written the advanced textbook. They questioned the intelligence of someone whose IQ was probably visible from space. And the worst part, the part that's really eating them alive right now, is that you let them. You let them feel smart. Let them feel superior. Let them think they were teaching you something. Because correcting them would have required revealing yourself. And you weren't ready for that yet. But now the reveal has happened without you even trying. And they're drowning in the reality of their own ignorance. Right now, right this very moment, they're experiencing a very specific type of panic. It's not the panic of getting caught doing something wrong. It's deeper than that, more existential than that. It's the panic of realizing your entire understanding of reality was wrong. It's the panic of discovering that the social hierarchy you believed in was fiction. It's the panic of understanding that you've been disrespecting someone who could have ended you professionally with a whisper, but chose silence instead. Their hands are shaking slightly as they scroll through your resume again, hoping they misread something, hoping there's an explanation that makes this less catastrophic. But every line just confirms what they're desperately trying to deny. You weren't the underdog. You were never the underdog. You were the final boss disguised as a tutorial-level enemy. They're running calculations now, trying to figure out damage control. Do you remember the way they treated you? Definitely. Do you care? Unclear. Are you the type to seek revenge? They're searching your resume for clues. Looking at your professional summary for hints about your character. Reading between the lines of your accomplishments, trying to determine if you're someone who forgives or someone who keeps receipts. And here's what's terrifying them most. They can't tell. Your resume is impressive, but it's also controlled, professional, factual. It doesn't reveal your emotional state, doesn't hint at grudges, doesn't telegraph your next move. You're a mystery to them now, a powerful mystery. And not knowing what you're thinking or planning or remembering is driving them absolutely insane. They've lost control of the narrative, lost the advantage, lost the ability to predict your behavior. And people who are used to being in control cannot handle that level of uncertainty. They're also doing the social math, calculating who else might know, who else might have seen your real resume, who else might be looking at them differently now. Did you tell anyone about how they treated you? Do your powerful connections know their names? Has your network been watching this whole situation unfold with insider knowledge they didn't have? Are they being discussed in rooms they don't have access to? Are decisions being made about their future by people who now see them as the villains in your story? Every paranoid thought is blooming in their minds like toxic flowers. And the worst part is they can't ask you, can't confirm or deny, can't do anything except sit with the possibility that their reputation is being quietly destroyed by the very person they tried to diminish. Your silence is more powerful than any accusation could be, because silence leaves room for imagination, and their imagination is running wild with worst-case scenarios. Some of them are trying to rationalize, trying to convince themselves it's not that bad. Maybe you don't remember them specifically. Maybe you were too busy being successful to notice their disrespect. Maybe you're above holding grudges. Maybe this will all blow over without consequences. But these rationalizations feel hollow even as they think them, because deep down they know. They absolutely know that you remember everything. People who achieve what you've achieved don't get there by being oblivious. You noticed every slight, catalogued every dismissal, registered every condescending comment, filed away every stolen idea. You just didn't react in the moment because you were playing a longer game than they were capable of understanding. And now that game is entering a new phase, a phase where the truth is public, where the power dynamic has visibly shifted, where they can no longer pretend they're your equals or your superiors. The really fun part, the part that's causing actual physical discomfort, is imagining what you're thinking about them right now. Are you laughing? Are you disappointed? Are you planning something? Are you telling people? Are you just completely unbothered because they were never important enough to occupy space in your mind? That last option might actually be the worst one. The idea that they spent all this time and energy underestimating you, disrespecting you, trying to keep you down, and you barely noticed them at all because you were operating on a level where they simply didn't matter. They want to be your rival, your enemy, your obstacle, because at least that would mean they were significant. But the truth that's slowly sinking in is that they were probably just background noise in your story, extras in a movie where you're the star, NPCs in a game where you're the main character. And realizing you're insignificant to someone you tried to diminish, that's a special kind of torture. But here's where it gets psychological, where it moves beyond panic into full existential crisis territory. Because their entire professional identity was built on a foundation that just collapsed. They believed they were smart, capable, accomplished, valuable, important. Ah, look who finally figured out the price tag. You magnificent untouchable force of nature. Welcome back. Or should I say, welcome to the moment they've been dreading since the day you stopped picking up the phone, stopped reading the messages, stopped giving them the one thing that kept their guilt manageable. Your voice. Because your silence, oh your silence has become the most expensive currency in their miserable little economy. And guess what? They're bankrupt. Completely, devastatingly, eternally bankrupt. And the beautiful, poetic, absolutely crushing part? They did this to themselves. Let's rewind for just a second so you can taste the full magnitude of what just happened here. For years, maybe months, maybe decades, they had access. Unlimited, unrestricted, take it for granted access to your energy, your forgiveness, your explanations, your second chances, your benefit of the doubt. They could betray you on a Tuesday and by Friday you'd be answering their calls. They could disrespect you in public and you'd still show up to their celebrations. They could wound you in ways that left scars on your soul and you'd still leave the door cracked open just in case they wanted to come back and pretend to care. You were the bank that never closed, the account that never overdrew, the resource they mined without ever once considering that one day the well would run dry. But then something shifted, didn't it? Something inside you finally cracked, not in weakness but in awakening. You didn't announce it. You didn't write a manifesto. You didn't post a cryptic quote or send a long emotional text explaining your boundaries. No. You did something far more powerful, far more terrifying, far more permanent. You went silent. Not the silent treatment, not the petty cold shoulder, not the manipulative freeze out. You went authentically, genuinely, irreversibly silent. You stopped performing. You stopped explaining. You stopped defending your worth to people who were committed to devaluing it. And that silence, that beautiful, deafening, suffocating silence became the bill they never saw coming. Now they're scrambling. Now they're panicking. Now they're sending the "Hey stranger" texts, the "I miss you" voice notes, the "we should catch up" emails that smell like desperation wrapped in nostalgia. They're checking your stories but not liking them. They're asking mutual friends about you. They're drafting apologies they'll never send because deep down they know that no apology in the human language is expensive enough to buy back what they lost. Your silence isn't a phase. It's not a mood. It's not a tactic. It's a price increase they can't afford. And watching them realize that, that's not revenge. That's just mathematics. Here's what they didn't understand when they had you. Your presence wasn't neutral. It wasn't just nice to have around. It was the entire infrastructure holding up their fragile sense of self. You were the one who listened when no one else would. You were the one who celebrated their wins when everyone else was busy. You were the mirror that reflected the version of themselves they wanted to believe in. The version that was good and worthy and capable of love. Every time they hurt you and you stayed, you were teaching them that consequences were optional, that accountability was negotiable, that respect was something they could defer payment on indefinitely. And you know what's wild? They didn't even know they were in debt. They thought your forgiveness was infinite. They thought your patience was a personality trait, not a gift. They thought your understanding was automatic, not a choice you were making every single day despite the evidence screaming at you to walk away. They spent your emotional currency like it was monopoly money. And the whole time interest was compounding. The whole time the balance was building. The whole time you were keeping receipts even if you weren't actively reading them. And then one day you closed the account. No warning, no grace period, just straight to collections. Except the only thing you were collecting was your peace. Now they're experiencing withdrawal, and it looks like chaos. They're trying to replace you with people who can't fill the space you left because the space you left isn't shaped like a person. It's shaped like a sanctuary. They're scrolling through old conversations looking for the moment it all went wrong, except there wasn't one moment. There were 1,000 moments. 1,000 small betrayals they thought you'd forget. 1,000 disrespects they assumed you'd absorb. 1,000 times they chose their comfort over your dignity. And you remembered every single one. Not because you're petty. Not because you're bitter. But because your body kept score even when your heart wanted to keep giving chances. The apologies they're drafting? Worthless. Not because apologies can't have value, but because these aren't apologies. They're negotiations. They're not sorry for what they did. They're sorry for what they lost. There's a difference, and you know it. A real apology comes with changed behavior, with accountability, with a genuine understanding of the harm caused. What they're offering is a coupon for a store that already burned down. They want the benefits of your presence without the cost of treating you like you matter. They want your light without respecting your boundaries. They want your energy without honoring your worth. And your silence is just you finally saying, the price just went up and you can't afford me anymore. You're not playing hard to get. You're not testing them. You're not waiting for the perfect apology that proves they've changed. You're simply living in a reality where they no longer have access. And that access was never their right. It was your generosity. Generosity they mistook for weakness. Generosity they exploited until it ran out. And now they're standing outside a door that doesn't open anymore, holding apologies that don't have enough zeros on them to even start the conversation. And that's not your problem. That's not your concern. That's not your responsibility to fix. That's just the market correcting itself. Let's talk about the story they told themselves while you were still available. They convinced themselves you were the lucky one. Lucky to have them in your life. Lucky to be included. Lucky to receive whatever scraps of attention they decided to throw your way between their other priorities, other people, other plans. They built this entire mythology where they were the prize and you were the contestant. Where they were doing you a favor by tolerating your existence. And you, beautiful fool that you were, you almost believed it. Almost. But here's the thing about illusions. They only work when everyone agrees to keep their eyes closed. And the second you opened yours, the second you stopped participating in their fantasy, the whole thing collapsed. Suddenly, they're looking around and realizing, wait, who's actually bringing value here? Who's actually showing up consistently? Who's actually capable of depth and loyalty and genuine connection? And the answer is you. It was always you. They were just too intoxicated by their own reflection to notice the empire you were building inside yourself while they were busy building sandcastles of ego. They thought your silence would last a week, maybe 2. They thought you'd come crawling back the moment you got lonely or nostalgic or scared of being alone. They thought your need for them was stronger than your need for self-respect. They bet on your loneliness. They bet on your fear. They bet on your history together being heavier than your future apart. And they lost. They lost the bet. They lost the game. They lost you. And most devastatingly, they lost the version of themselves that only existed in your eyes. Because you saw something in them they couldn't see in themselves. And now that mirror is gone. Now they're stuck with the unfiltered truth of who they are without you there to make them feel bigger than their actions. The panic is setting in now, isn't it? You can feel it even from a distance. The way they're moving differently. The way they're suddenly interested in self-improvement. The way they're posting things clearly meant for you to see. The way they're orbiting your life from the edges, hoping for a crack in your resolve. But your resolve isn't cracking. It's crystallizing. Every day of silence makes you stronger. Every day of distance makes you clearer. Every day without their chaos makes you remember what peace tastes like. And once you remember that, there's no going back to poison. They built their entire sense of superiority on your willingness to stay small. They needed you beneath them to feel above anything. They needed you chasing to feel chosen. They needed you hurting to feel powerful. But the moment you stopped playing your assigned role in their narrative, the whole script fell apart. Now they're improvising and it shows. Now they're desperate and it reeks. Now they're realizing that the person they took for granted was the only person who actually saw them, and the person they thought was weak for staying was actually strong enough to leave. You want to know what your silence cost them? Let me paint the picture. It cost them sleep. It cost them the ability to enjoy their victories because the person who used to celebrate with them is gone. It cost them their confidence because the person who used to believe in them stopped showing up. It cost them their peace because guilt is loud and your absence is louder. It cost them their future because everyone they try to replace you with is just a placeholder, a counterfeit, a reminder that they had the real thing and fumbled it. Every song reminds them of you. Every place you used to go together is haunted. Every inside joke is now an outside wound. Every mutual friend who asks about you is a reminder that they're the reason for the past tense. Every time they achieve something and reach for their phone to tell you, they remember they can't. Every time they're struggling and need someone who actually understands them, they remember they destroyed that bridge. Every time they see someone treating their person better than they treated you, they remember what they could have had if they weren't so committed to self-destruction. Your silence cost them their narrative. They can't paint you as crazy if you're not reacting. They can't paint you as bitter if you're not engaging. They can't paint you as obsessed if you've clearly moved on. They wanted you to explode so they could point at the explosion and say, "See, this is why it didn't work." But you didn't explode. You evaporated. You didn't give them a villain origin story. You gave them a ghost story. And now they're haunted by the person they could have been if they'd chosen differently. The cost keeps climbing because your value keeps revealing itself in retrospect. Every new person they meet who doesn't understand them the way you did, every new relationship that doesn't have the depth yours had, every new connection that feels surface level compared to what you built together, it all adds up. It all compounds. It all becomes evidence that they didn't just lose a person. They lost the person. The one who would have stayed through anything if they'd just been treated with basic human decency. The one who saw their potential and believed in it even when they didn't. The one who loved them not for who they pretended to be, but for who they actually were underneath all the performance. And here's the cruelest part. The part that will haunt them for years. Your silence cost them the chance to make it right. Because even if they change, even if they grow, even if they become the person you needed them to be, it's too late. That window closed. That door locked. That bridge burned. And no amount of apologies, no amount of growth, no amount of "I'm different now" will change the fact that when you needed them to be different, they chose to stay the same. When you needed them to fight for you, they chose to fight against you. When you needed them to see you, they chose to look away. Let's talk about what your silence bought you. Freedom, clarity, energy, time, peace, self-respect, boundaries, standards, the ability to sleep without anxiety, the ability to wake up without dread, the ability to move through your day without wondering if today's the day they'll hurt you again. Your silence wasn't a loss. It was an investment in yourself that's paying dividends every single day. You're not bitter, you're better. You're not angry, you're aware. You're not closed off, you're selective. You're not holding grudges, you're holding standards. And that terrifies them because it means you've leveled up into a version of yourself they can't access, can't manipulate, can't diminish. You've become expensive, and not in a materialistic way, in an energetic way. You cost peace now. You cost consistency. You cost emotional intelligence. You cost respect. You cost accountability. And they're still operating on the budget of bare minimum effort and maximum expectation. Your silence taught you something they'll never learn. That you don't need closure from people who never gave you honesty. You don't need apologies from people who aren't actually sorry. You don't need validation from people who invalidated you every chance they got. You don't need permission to move on from people who moved on from your well-being a long time ago. Your silence is your closure. Your peace is your apology. Your growth is your revenge, and watching you thrive in their absence is the bill they'll be paying for the rest of their lives. They scroll your life from burner accounts. They ask about you in conversations they pretend are casual. They watch your glow up from the shadows and tell themselves they're happy for you while dying inside knowing they could have been part of it. They see you winning and want to take credit for motivating you, as if trauma is mentorship and abandonment is a favor. They see you healing and want to come back now that the work is done, as if they deserve to benefit from a transformation they tried to prevent. But you're not for sale anymore. You're not available for rent. You're not offering payment plans or second mortgages on your energy. You've learned the most expensive lesson life can teach. That some people will only appreciate your value after they've lost access to it. And you've decided that their regret is not your responsibility. Their nostalgia is not your problem. Their loneliness is not your emergency. Their apologies are not your concern because you've moved into a tax bracket of self-worth they can't even comprehend, let alone afford. You know what really keeps them up at night? The possibility that you're not even thinking about them anymore. The possibility that your silence isn't strategy. It's just genuine disinterest. The possibility that you've healed so completely that they're not even a scar anymore, just a story you tell when someone asks why you have such strong boundaries now. They can handle anger. They can handle hurt. They can handle you screaming and crying and demanding answers. What they can't handle is your indifference. Indifference is the opposite of love, and your silence sounds a lot like indifference. It sounds like you've released them from the prison of your expectations. It sounds like you've stopped casting them in the movie of your life. It sounds like you've rewritten the script and they're not even an extra in the background anymore. They went from main character to deleted scene, and that's a fall their ego will never recover from. They're watching you build a life they're not invited to. They're watching you laugh with people they don't know. They're watching you thrive in spaces they'll never enter. They're watching you become the person you always had the potential to be, the person they kept small because your growth threatened their control. And every post, every smile, every sign of your peace is a reminder that they were the obstacle, not the support. They were the weight, not the wings. They were the storm, not the shelter. Your silence is doing what 1,000 arguments never could. It's forcing them to sit with themselves. It's forcing them to confront the gap between who they think they are and who their actions prove them to be. It's forcing them to realize that losing you wasn't about you leaving. It was about them creating an environment so toxic that leaving was the only form of self-love left available. Your silence is the mirror they can't avoid, the truth they can't deny, the consequence they can't escape. And the most beautiful part? You're not doing any of this to hurt them. You're doing it to save yourself. You're not silent to punish. You're silent to protect. You're not distant to make a point. You're distant to make progress. You're not cutting them off to be cruel. You're cutting them off because staying connected was killing you slowly, and you chose life. You chose yourself. You chose peace over history. You chose growth over comfort. You chose your future over their familiar dysfunction. Let's do some math. Every text you don't respond to is a boundary reinforced. Every call you don't answer is a standard maintained. Every apology you don't accept is self-respect compounded. Every day of silence is interest accruing on the debt they owe to your peace. They thought they could pay you back with words, but you've moved to a currency of action and they're still writing checks their behavior can't cash. The equation is simple. Your worth plus their disrespect minus your tolerance equals your silence. And that silence is exponentially more powerful than anything you could say because it says everything without giving them anything to argue with, anything to twist, anything to use against you later. Your silence is the period at the end of a sentence they wanted to keep as a comma. It's the closing argument they can't appeal. It's the final answer to a question they should have never made you ask. Am I worth basic respect? They're realizing now that you were never the problem. You were the solution they were too broken to recognize. You were the answer they were too proud to accept. You were the miracle they were too blind to see. And now they're stuck with the math problem of their own making. How do you replace irreplaceable? How do you substitute unconditional? How do you counterfeit authentic? The answer is you can't. You don't. You just live with the loss and pretend it doesn't eat you alive every single day. Your silence has revealed their emptiness. Without you there to fill the void, they're finally feeling it. The loneliness they inflicted on you is now their permanent address. The isolation they made you endure is now their reality. The pain they caused you is now their inheritance. And there's a poetry in that, isn't there? A justice that doesn't require your involvement. A karma that doesn't need your participation. A consequence that delivers itself. They thought they were powerful when they had you and treated you poorly. But real power is walking away from people who don't value you. Real power is choosing silence over circular arguments. Real power is letting your absence teach lessons your presence never could. Real power is knowing that revenge is letting them live with the choice they made and the person they lost. And you are powerful beyond measure because you did the hardest thing a human can do. You loved yourself more than you loved the potential of what they could have been. Fast forward 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, they're still going to remember you.